Welcome everyone to tonight's Ordinary Council meeting. I am the Mayor. My name is Councillor Georgina Papafodio. This is my first council meeting as the Mayor of Brimbank. I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow the direction of council officers and the emergency procedures on the wall near the door. I would like to note that I've given approval for the journalists from the Brimbank Star Weekly and Channel 31 to audio and video record the meeting. Members of the gallery are not intended to be recorded, but please notify a council officer if you have any concerns. Could you all please stand for the Acknowledgement of Country? On behalf of Brimbank City Council, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Wurundjeri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. I ask councillors to remain standing for the council commitment. As the council, we will act in the best interests of the Brimbank community and consider the immediate and long-term impacts of our decisions. We will make these decisions fairly and without bias. We will uphold all of our obligations under the laws of Victoria and Council's local laws, and we will act in accordance with our Code of Conduct. Thank you. Item 3, apologies and leave of absence. I note that Councillor Congreve is on leave of absence from the 7th of November to the 16th of December 2019, and also Councillor Lancashire is on leave from the 7th of November to the 19th of November 2019. Item 4, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Councillor Farm.
Yes, I want to declare a conflict of indirect conflict of interest at item 12.16. Thank you. Thank you.
Item 5, designation of items as confidential. There are 4 items to be designated as confidential this evening. May I have a mover of motion to designate this item as confidential?
So moved, down there.
Thank you, Councillor Goodichay. Do you want to state the motion?
As stated in the business papers, thank you.
Thank you. May I have a seconder? Councillor David. I will put the motion to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. May I have a mover for a motion to confirm the minutes of the previous council meetings? Councillor Hedditch. Thank you. May I have a seconder? Councillor Trung. I will put the motion to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Condolences. There is one item of condolence this evening, and this is the passing of Miss Bronwen Merrigan. May I have a mover of a motion of condolence? Councillor Hedditch. Would you like and a seconder? Councillor David, thank you. Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, I rise on behalf of the Brimbank City Council to issue our deepest condolences to Bronwen's husband Rob and her daughters Kate and Rachel on her passing. Bronwen grew up locally and completed her education at Braybrook High School. She quickly established herself as a well-respected and persuasive advocate for the local Sunshine community and the wider Western Suburbs community. Bronwen had many roles that supported the local Western Suburbs, as well as her role as the House Coordinator and Manager of Duke Street Community House. This appointment culminated in a period of positive growth and development for the House. Working tirelessly, she brought the organisation and people together in partnerships to grow Duke Street Community House's services. Throughout this time, Bronwen continued to be an active volunteer, including at the beloved Sunshine Presbyterian Church. Bronwen also volunteered with the Neighbourhood Houses Association of Victoria and many other places. Although retired to rob with Torquay, Bronwen remained in touch with Duke Street and was in attendance to see Katie Hall MP present a $200,000 cheque for improvements to the house earlier in 2019. A number of us were there, and Bronwen was there, bright and bubbly, and really enjoying the day and enjoying the contribution to service development that was going on. In 2009, Bronwen was recognised for her tireless work, engaging and warm personality, and dedication to all of her roles by being presented with Brimbank's Citizen of the Year award. She is also recognised in that year on the honour roll of the Association of Neighbourhood Houses and Learning Centres. Bronwen was special. The local Sunshine community has a long and proud tradition of fighting for a fair go. Many community campaigns have been run over the years, and Bronwen was always there, adding her support and words of advice in helpful and compassionate ways, for she too saw the need to bring about better outcomes for the community. She truly represented the fight for social justice for her community through her kind words, her inclusive approach, her ability to collaborate well, and most of all, through her respectful and wise counsel. So on behalf of Council, I recognise the valuable time and support that Bronwen provided to the Brimbank community and again extend our condolences to her family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Would the Secretary like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Indeed, I first met Bronwen when she first taken over the Duke House. And I once told her that, Bronwen, I said, you're a good builder. He says, what do you mean? I said, look, what you done here, you put tremendous, good, strong foundations for people to follow. And indeed, she did. She changed that house for the better. At the latest stage, of course, it was taken over by Lana Bedford, which you all know well. And Lana told me exactly the same things. I follow the path of Bronwen. Yesterday, Madam Mayor, a beautiful sunny day. The whole Anderson Road and the Chaplain Reserve next door was chock-a-block with cars. There was relations, relatives, of course, volunteers, and Bronwen's workmates and people that she worked with for many years, and a lot of friends. We entered the church in a very nice sunny day, and the church was packed up. It was people that knew Bronwen, the family, and what she did over the years. The service, the celebrant, put an extremely good time for everyone to celebrate Bronwen's passing. But at the very end, it was Rob Merrigan, where I think he put the icing on the cake, as they say, for the final farewell for Bronwen. She spoke about Bronwen and how fond she was for the church, Presbyterian Church in Anderson Road. And he told us that they got married there, and the family, etc. So I'd like to thank Rob, who stood up and make us all at times laugh, but emotional. And as fellow Councillor Hedditch said, may the God Bronwen rest in peace, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In addition to what has already been said with regards to Bronwen and her legacy, I would like to share with you Bron's musings, which she wrote on the bed while she was at the Epworth Hospital just a few days before she passed away. I have had a wonderful life with more blessings than I could count or deserve. Some of these are a gracious and loving Heavenly Father and Savior Jesus Christ, a loving husband and family, beautiful and caring friends, supportive church family, homes that I have enjoyed, gardens and plants to care for. Certainly touched everyone that was for the service yesterday. And I would also like to pass the condolences to the family and the members of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Councillor Goodichere.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also wish to rise to offer my condolences to the family of Bronwen. There's probably a couple of things that I remember about Bronwen, a couple of things that stand out. Firstly, of course, the many achievements for the community that she was able to realise through the community house. As councillors, we were often invited to witness those, and she always did a wonderful job, and the community house would certainly not be what it is now without Bronwen's help in those days. But the other thing that I remember about her is her caring, soft voice. It's the way that she spoke to people, and I understand that's why the Duke Street Community House is and was so successful, because of that soft, caring voice that she had when she spoke to people. That remains in my mind for a very long time. I'm very sad that I missed the memorial yesterday. I was on grandmotherly duty, so I couldn't attend. But my thoughts were with her and her family, as they remain today. And I'm sure that the community are very, very sad in losing such a very strong, community-minded lady, and such a lovely family lady as well. I don't think there's anyone that she didn't meet that she didn't touch somehow. But may I also ask, Madam Mayor, that we hold a minute's silence in her regard. Thank you.
Before we do that, any other councillors? Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to add in is all other councillors already say, but I'm so sorry for your loss, a beautiful wife, a lovely man, a mum, a best friend, but also a wonderful woman. But you're so proud about her. It's whatever she's doing for the community. And for all the contributions of the lot of things she's doing for the community. So I'm so impressed when I attend for the service yesterday. The people attend to show how lovely, how care from us, and to share with the Lord, with the family. So please accept my warm and heartfelt for condolences. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillor? Okay, if we could all stand for a minute's silence, please. Thank you. May she rest in peace. My condolences to the family. Apologies, councillors, we need to put that to a motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Item 8, congratulations. There are no items of congratulations this evening. Item 9, public question time. We've now reached the part of the meeting for public questions. Just for anyone unaware, public questions are able to be received in writing by noon on the day of a council meeting. We are unable to accept any public questions from people in attendance on the night. If someone who has submitted a public question is unable to attend the meeting, we will make sure we respond in writing within 5 business days. Ms Fleer, I understand we have received questions from the public this evening.
Yes, Chair. The first 2 questions are from Mr Ramsey, and I understand Mr Ramsey's in the gallery this evening. Is that correct? Great, thank you. The first question is, Brimbank Council has declared a climate emergency and released better parks to address the much-needed requirement of appropriate parks and green space that had been neglected by previous councils. Why is it then you continue to sell land deemed excess that could otherwise be used to address the land deficit issue?
Thank you for your question, Jamie. Since 2008, Council has spent approximately $32 million and upgraded 105 parks. The Creating Better Parks plan has transformed Brimbank's park network into green and active places. And most parks will achieve a 30 to 50% canopy cover over time. As part of Creating Better Parks implementation, we have purchased land that is suitable to be converted into a park in Sunshine and Albion. We also have a policy that guides the sale of any land that we deem surplus to requirements. Any council-owned land that is required for council services is retained, including council land that is deemed suitable for a park.
The second question by Mr Ramsey is, as part of the Better Parks initiative, it appears Sunshine North continues to be neglected as it is still lacking in appropriate green space and appropriate parks. Why did you not include a playground in the Stony Creek development, given there is no appropriate playground in that area? And what are you doing to address this issue, given the high rates of obesity and diabetes in that part of Brimbank?
Thank you for your question. A playground was not included in the Upper Stony Creek project as there was no suitable space away from the river corridor to safely locate a playground. Once completed, the Upper Stony Creek project will provide around 3 kilometres of new walking paths, which includes access to additional open space in North Sunshine. We are also considering an opportunity at the end of Carey Street for play facilities, and our officers are also seeking play facilities within the redevelopment of the former City West Water site, currently being developed by Development Victoria.
The next question is by Mr Goji. Is Mr Goji in attendance this evening? No, okay, so we will take that question on notice and we'll provide a written response to Mr Goji in the next couple of days. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 10, petitions. There are no petitions to be received this evening. Item 11, minutes or reports of special committees. There are no minutes or reports from special committee meetings. Item 12, officer reports. There are 17 officer reports for consideration by Council tonight. Report or item number 12.1, J.R. Parsons Reserve Community Vision and Site Plan. Could I invite Kath Brackett to introduce the report briefly, please?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is for Council to consider the final draft J.R. Parsons Reserve Community Vision and Site Plan following a period of community consultation. During that period, Council received 318 written submissions, and the final draft plan has had minor changes based on community feedback. While the site plan has broad-based support, a number of concerns are raised by the Albion Football Club, and these concerns have been noted in the Council report and the attachment 2 under the Community Consultation Report. There is further opportunities for Council to engage with the tenant supporting clubs during the implementation process to support a transition process that meets club and community needs. The Office recommendation is as per the business papers.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No? Is there a mover?
Madam Mayor, I have an amendment that I'd like to put forward. I have an amended motion.
Yes.
Okay. The amended motion reads as A, having considered the submissions received on the draft of the J.R. Parsons Reserve Community Vision and Site Plan, adopts the final draft of J.R. Parsons Community Visions and Site Plan at Attachment 1 to the report. B, notes the projects identified in the final draft of the J.R. Parsons Reserve Community Vision and Site Plan will be referred to Council's annual budget process for consideration. C, writes to submitters thanking them for the submissions on the draft J.R. Parsons Reserve Community Vision and Site Plan and advising of Council's decision. D, confirms its commitment to the principles of shared multipurpose use of community facilities as outlined in the Sports Facility Development Plan and Community Services Infrastructure Plan. And E, receives a further report on planned transition arrangements for the Grand United Cricket Club and Albion Football Club in early 2020 that considers the historical arrangements in place at the site or the support required by both clubs to make a successful transition to a future shared use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hedditch? Okay, I invite the mover to speak.
Madam Mayor, with this amended motion, it, I believe, has brokered a positive outcome for all the sports clubs involved. Through a lot of hard work, what we have come to understand, it's also allowed for a lot more granular consultation with both clubs on their specific needs going forward, something I feel is very important and perhaps was lacking a little bit, but having since read all the submissions and talked to club members, there is a lot more discussion needed going forward on the needs, whilst not inhibiting or a diminution of the site plan and development either. So a lot of work has gone into what's envisioned as a site plan to improve and also lift the area, and there's no one against that, but what we do need is a closer conversation with our clubs on what their needs are in the next 5 to 10 years. So what this amendment also allows is that, subject to the Albion Football Club agreeing to seasonal shared use of the new facility when they move to it, it allows an in-principle agreement that the club remains in their current pavilion until it reaches it at the end of its useful and life, as determined by an independent assessment, or the club is unable to afford the required maintenance or upgrades of the club, determines to move into the new joint use shared pavilion, whichever happens first. Council will seek advice about setting up an agreement where the ongoing management, upgrades, maintenance and liabilities of the current building are the responsibility of the Albion Football Club going forward. So it still retains the pavilion as it is, but it stipulates that strictly under the management of the club and the maintenance of the club. But also it allows that flexibility that if the club also determines that it wants to move forward into a shared facility, then there is scope for further discussions, and there will be further discussions post this amendment between all the clubs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Hedditch, would you like to speak?
I would, Madam Mayor. Tonight we're making a decision that is really important to a number of clubs and to the community generally. Tonight we've read out our commitment where we say that we will act in the best interest of the Brimbank community and consider the immediate and long-term impacts of our decisions, and we'll make these decisions fairly and without bias. We've had a really difficult process and a decision to make here tonight. We've got 4, I guess, stakeholders in this: the community, the football club, the cricket club and the tennis club, and maybe more in the future as well. We need to allow for that. But for me, this process needed a conversation. There were some diverse views around how to move forward with a shared pavilion, and I congratulate the clubs, the officers and all those involved in getting to this point with the amended motion here tonight. It serves its purpose. What it allows us to do is to move forward to think about the future. We have an Albion football club that has been built by the community for the community. There is equity in it. We need to have that conversation with all the clubs about how we move forward and how we develop a shared facility. The Albion Football Club premises will one day need to be moved on. There is a need to put shared facilities together. I think we all acknowledge that. That's the way clubs and sporting clubs work around everywhere in the future and now. We need to move to that eventually. But this gives time and, I guess, energy to a process of working out how that transition might happen. The cricket club needs premises urgently. The tennis club needs premises urgently. The community needs the site upgraded urgently. We had a great silos presentation the other night. The iconic site came out in all its four the other night. It was fabulous. But we need this whole site working together as one. All clubs, community in together. We need to get past where we have been. We need to go forward with a new vision, with a new way of working. So I commend those who put the notice of motion together tonight. I think it's a fabulous start to a new beginning eventually. It won't happen overnight, but it needs a lot of work and a lot of commitment from everyone to look forward and think about the future and think about the growing population around here and what great clubs we can have in terms of tennis, football and cricket. We know they're all growing. They're going to need a bigger facility and we're going to need a whole range of other new opportunities. So let's get together after this and work out how we all do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Any other councillors that would like to speak to this motion? No. Councillor Goodachare?
As Ward Councillor, Councillor Dan.
Councillor Goodachare?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do support the amendment, of course, and I thank everyone that's been involved in all the conversations over the last 48 hours. I understand that when council makes these decisions, it is sometimes hard for everyone to comprehend. But we are a community first council. Parsons Reserve is a tremendous site and it really does deserve the development that's going to be on there. I understand that there is a little bit of a stumbling block there, but I'm sure that with everyone speaking together and everyone understanding the historical arrangements, that this can actually be achieved. I congratulate all the clubs for all their submissions, all the community for their submissions as well. It's been a long time coming, and I remember Councillor David and I visiting this initially quite a few years ago. So I'm actually glad to see it off the ground, and I'm actually very happy that the football club can actually use the premises for a little bit longer. And then, of course, in years to come, decisions will be made that maybe this council will not be part of, but the new committees perhaps at those clubs will be part of as well. So I commend everyone and also the first-class facility that this council will be providing in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And indeed, I think that this amendment is giving the club a bit more time to think in futuristic what to do. But if I can go back a bit longer, Madam Mayor, the former City of Sunshine did enter into agreements with many clubs in my memory, tells me, and one of them was the Albion Football Club. What they did, and I remember, and I might show you my years now, but I remember the late 80s where two ladies every week and every weekend they selling cakes or they running bingos to save money for putting into that building. And I remember all that well. So I feel that they feel that an ownership in that club. And they use it every day of the week. And some other community groups, they use the facility there, which is win-win situation for all around. I believe, as I said earlier, the amendment will give the club a longer time to try and chew it together, and perhaps, who knows, in the future they might see a happy medium with the cricket club, and wish them luck for that type of situation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillor? Okay. Oh, Councillor Trump.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I fully support the amendment from Councillor Tycho and Councillor Hedis. Also, it's very bright. It's like after 40 hour discussion, we have the solution and all the block. It can be working together, and we look forward for all of the block if we have the way to go ahead with the planning. And we all agree the sport is really important for our community. And when we can do together and everyone think it's the community first, it's the successful for our community. Thank you for all getting involved in this project. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Now I'll put this to a vote for the amendment motion. Those for the amendment? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.2, Planning Activity Update and Delegate Decisions, October 2019. I'll invite Calvin Walsh to briefly introduce the report. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. This is a monthly report to Council regarding the status of planning permit applications and trends in planning approvals in Brimbank, as well as decisions made under delegated authority in October 2019 regarding planning permit applications and other matters. Council is asked to note the report, including the delegated planning permit decisions provided at attachment 1.
Thank you. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? No. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those...
We need a mover.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we need a mover for this report. Councillor Heddich and a seconder, please. Councillor Borg. Okay, all those in favour?
So just ask if, you can ask if the mover and seconder want to speak.
Does the mover want to speak to this report?
No, it's fine.
Thank you. The seconder? Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you.
You might.
Okay. I know there's a number of people from the Albion Football Club here today. Thank you for attending. If you would like to leave, you can leave any time, but you're welcome to stay as well. Thank you. And the cricket club, yes. Thank you. Okay. Item 12.3, the Governance Report, November 2019. Could I ask Dan Hogan to briefly introduce the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The monthly governance report is a standing item within the ordinary council meeting agenda. It is a summary of recent governance activity in accordance with best practice and good governance principles. Written in compliance with the Local Government Act of 1989, the report variously informs council of delegated decisions, outcomes of previous council resolutions, or seeks relevant decision for action.
Thank you. Do I have any questions or points of clarification? No? Okay. Is there a mover for this report?
So moved, Madam Mayor, as per the business papers.
Thank you, Councillor Goodachere. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tarkos. Would the mover like to speak?
Just simply a few words, Madam Mayor, as the Portfolio Council for the Brimbank Innovation, which does include governance and probity, I'd like to highlight the importance of this monthly governance report to Council. It provides ongoing transparency and honesty to our community on the way that we do conduct our governance. So there's a wide range of recent governance activity and issues, including committees, portfolios and allocations, councillor support expenses, contracts entered into or executed under delegation since reporting to the last ordinary council meeting, updated terms of reference for the Brimbank Community Fund, a very important fund I might add, and records of assemblies of councillors and delegates reports from committees. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Madam Mayor, just wearing my advocacy portfolio hat, I note that in the previous Mayor's visit to Canberra, and part of that visit was to Air Services Australia, to receive a briefing about what they do and specifically around aviation noise, its monitoring and the removal of the EMUs or the environmental noise monitors from Keilor. It was also stated that Brimbank Council is considering its position around a possible new runway, which was subsequently announced last week to be of a north-south orientation. Madam Mayor, on the back of this, I have requested for a briefing for all councillors by Air Services, and we are also receiving a briefing in the future from the airport. It is now more than ever critical that this council advocates to ensure potential impacts are anticipated, particularly in the Brimbank area, and mitigates and looks at noise abatement measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Any other speakers? Councillor Hedditch.
I also would like to support what Councillor Tarkos has said around the Air Services Australia information that's in this report. I think it's really important that we start to have some ongoing conversations with Air Services and other organisations that are dealing with air services. We have a significant problem, it sounds, from the feedback that we've got from Councillor Congreve and others, that we have a service that isn't really operating as well as it should. And with all that's happening with the north-south runway change and all the, I guess, the anxiety in the community, we need a properly functioning air services set of facilities and an operational model. So for me, I think this is a big issue for our community going forward the next year or two, and one that we need to keep an eye on and really keep active about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.4, election method and election plan. Could I please ask Dan Hogan again to introduce the report, please?
I think it's actually quarterly financial report. Yeah, I think that's actually incorrect there. So it's this one here. Sorry, it's a mistake in the sheet. Yeah.
Okay.
So 12.4 is the quarterly financial report.
I apologise, I've got something else on my paperwork. Item number 12.4 is the quarterly financial report for the period ending 30th of September 2019. Could I please ask Shane Maher to brief us on this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is presented to Council to note the quarterly financial results for the period ending 30th September 2019. This is the first report for the 2019 financial year and also includes projected results as at the end of the financial year. The report's presented to Council for noting.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or points of clarification, councillors? Do I have a mover for this report?
So moved, Madam Mayor, as in the business papers.
Thank you. Councillor Goodicci. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Farn, would the mover like to speak to the report?
Just simply, Madam Mayor, that it's a comprehensive, detailed 3-month review of Council's financial position, outlining the ups, the downs, what's equal, what's unequal, just a 3-monthly review. And it shows that Council is actually, it's ongoing assurance that we have implemented the principles of sound financial management right throughout. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the report? Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Now 12.5, election method and election plan. Could I ask Dan Hogan to briefly introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies for that error in item numbering. 12.5, election method and election plan. The report before Council seeks a decision of electoral method for the next municipal election, which is scheduled for the 24th of October 2020.
Thank you. Do I have any questions or points of clarification, councillors? No. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tarkos.
I move as per business papers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Borg. Thank you. Would the mover like to speak?
Madam Mayor, going by this report, I note that we are favouring the postal vote for the election, which I think is a positive outcome because it has there's evidence to show there was a high level of voter turnout, there was a lower level of informal votes, and there was a high rate of eligible voters counted as well, which I think is really important. This alone paints a very strong and positive response to why postal voting is a better voting option. It also gives time for the voter to assess candidates they are voting for, who they stand for, ask questions, etc. The only point I would like to make in this process is that given Brimbank's diverse community, that provision of information is provided in community languages as well, so that people understand, A, the importance of voting, to facilitate familiarisation of the local council as well and what the role of the council is, the councillor role entails, and that voting is compulsory and why it is compulsory. One thing that is that this elected council can really be proud of and boast about is that our level of representation with females, which I believe is probably one of the best achievements in the state, they are struggling to get 30%. So this is something that we want to continue and tap into the amazing talented and diverse women that are out there. There is a call from a lot of women already that, and just generally that the LGA and the VLGA offer the sessions they do where many people can attend and learn a little bit more about local government and the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to endorse what Councillor Tako said with regards to the election method and the postal votes, and also the support that we need to give to our community, considering its diversity, and make sure that we get the message to all the diverse communities in our community, and ensure that this is a democratic approach to the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Any other speakers for this report? Councillor Hedditch.
I support what Councillor Tarkos and Councillor Borg have both said. The bits I'd like to add are that this method, I think, is a much better method. We've had some issues in the past around booths and things like that that have occurred. This is a better method. It gets past all that. I think I'd also like to add, Councillor Tarkos talked about the need for a good, diverse group of women to be on council. That's absolutely correct. We need a really good balance of people on council. But I also want to put in a plug for youth. Councillor Borg has been actively involved with youth over the last couple of years, and we've just formed a youth council. So for me, I want to see this table with a number of youth at it, because they are our future, and they have different ideas, and they have, I guess, contributions to make that we can't. So for me, I'm really looking forward to getting out there in the next 12 months and encouraging younger candidates to come forward, male and female, and or whatever gender, and we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Any other councillor that would... Councillor Kudici.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo, of course, the sentiments of my fellow councillors, and have to say that I can't believe that 3 years have gone by already. It's almost impossible to think that way. Having experienced postal voting for the first time at the last election, I'd have to say that, yeah, I'm definitely in favour of it. My family's definitely in favour of it, because I don't have to stand at the booths for the whole day, and I don't have to go recruiting everybody to come and give out for me. So yes, definitely. So having said that, I wish everyone well in their last year of this council, and I can reassure the community that we're not going to be slack. We're actually going to work harder this year to realise everything that we said we were going to be doing in the next 4 years, and we've only got 1 year to go. Now, Councillor Hedditch, I presume you mean women and youth on the next council? You didn't mention any men. Yes. Thank you. I just thought I'd make light of it, but thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kudici. Any other councillor? Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to add in with, I support all the things from Councillor Taco, Councillor John Harris and Margaret. But I think it's like we have the, we all know is we have a lot ethnic community, and the issue, especially for the new migrant arrive, we have the issue they all mostly don't understand how to vote. So beforehand, we need a lot of information in the multicultural language on the newspaper of their own language or in all the organization. So it's training or talking to them is the way how to vote. Is to make their vote available and successful. Then if they do the wrong, because I know it's the last election is some people they say, okay, just put number one who they want. That's all they do it. So we have to think about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers? No. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We're up to item 12.6. Proposal to enter into a new lease agreement with St Albans Sports Club. Could I invite Kath Brackett to briefly introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider entering into a new lease agreement for the Kings Park Reserve, Gillespie Road, St Albans, with the St Albans Sports Club. The proposed lease is to enable the club to continue its current operation at Kings Park Reserve, including sporting activities and the operation of 35 electronic gaming machines. In accordance with sections 190 and 223 of the Act, Council provided public notice of its intention to lease the land at Kings Park Reserve for a period of 10 years with the option of a further 2 terms of 5 and via written submissions. Council received 2 submissions and no changes were made to the lease agreements. Also, in line with Council's adopted gambling policy, a discount framework based on harm minimisation forms part of the agreement, and that is an attachment to the Council report. Office recommendation is as per the business papers.
Thank you, Kath. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No? All right. Is there a mover to this motion?
I move
Councillor Takos, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor David. Would the mover like to talk to this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that in line with the Council's harm minimisation policy, St Albans Sports Club adopt and agree to the lease discount framework which we have put forward. Of this, the biggest discount on the lease agreement is that of 40%. So 40% consists 20% going to existing programs that will look at harm minimisation.
Amended motion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Just some clarification there, Councillor Takos. Did you have an amendment to this motion?
Apologies, there is an amended motion. Would you like me to read
okay. Yes, please. Could you speak?
I'd just like to add E, which writes to the CEO of the Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation, seeking support to assist council fund and undertake a longitudinal evaluation of the impacts, outcomes and issues arising from the implementation of the lease discount framework over the next decade. Apologies.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the amendment motion? Councillor Borg. Thank you. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Apologies for jumping the gun then. Yes, as I was saying, the amended motion is in line with the harm minimisation policy that that Council have adopted going forward. The framework, the lease discount framework, which makes the biggest discount of 40%, divided into 20% for existing programs that minimise harm and 20% for all new activities and new programs that reduce gambling harm and produce evidence of it reducing harm along with the lesser percentage activities of developing a sports facility capital works plan and also improvement to investment plan as well as community benefit activities. I think it's really important that we've added the additional longitudinal evaluation of these impacts to assess that going forward that these are properly quantified. The Alliance for Gambling Reform outlines its best harm reducement strategies include reducing the hours of operation, reducing machine numbers, reducing limit on cash withdrawals, removing pokies and associated signage, reducing and leasing any kind of leasing or loyalty programs to the venue. They're the core activities that are recommended by the Alliance. However, what we're looking at is what above and beyond activities and programs will be offered by the club so it can then reduce its commercial rent. So what St Aubyn Sport Club does above and beyond to help reduce the harms will be a critical component of the commercial lease going forward and the discount framework, which will be based on what harm reduction programs they will offer. I think it's really important to note that with this arrangement, whilst the club does so much good for our community, and there can be no denying that it already offers some excellent programs like the feeder disability access to football program. It also supports a lot of disadvantage. It also needs to look at the harms that are done by the pokies to that very the demographic that we're talking about. So I think the study will be a very useful tool for us going forward with this new lease agreement to see that this is working, and we'll be able to evaluate the harm minimisations as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to acknowledge the intensive work that council officers have been working with the members of the board of the St Albans Sports Club to negotiate the new lease and associated licenses for Kings Park. Since council endorsed the Brimbank electronic gambling policy in 2019, the negotiations evolved around this policy. The key objective of this policy is to minimize the impact electronic gambling and promote alternatives that have positive economic, social and health outcomes. Clubs with electronic gaming machines located on council land have specific requirements. It's great to see Brimbank Council taking such a significant leading role in working with the St Albans Sports Club to find ways to minimize the impact of electronic gambling. I would also like to endorse the amended motion, and it's great to see going forward a study to see how to investigate rather the impact that this new lease and the approach that we're taking has with regards to gambling. I would like to congratulate both the council staff and the members of the board of the St Albans Sports Club for the intensive work done in the process of reviewing the terms in this tenancy agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Do I have any other speakers for this amended motion? Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to reflect on what has been a long process. I can remember upstairs meeting with all the councils, or nearly all the councillors, and a number of clubs, or the two clubs involved that have pokies on council land, and that was some time ago. We've gone a long way since then. There has been a lot of contention in this one. It has created a lot of discussion both inside council and in the community. And I guess that's also been discussed at Parliament and various other places where decisions at a higher level are made. There is a division of opinion around poker machines and the way forward in this city. I think the starting point is that we are the biggest losers. We have the biggest losses of any LGA in Victoria, and that we have, I guess, a number of clubs who are providing poker machines to the community, and a number of them who are doing it with a service model beside it that is doing a fabulous job for community. But the harm that's coming from the pokies on the other side of the business is offsetting some of that, in my opinion. Tonight, though, we're looking at this new lease that's been developed up with the club, and I'm glad to hear from Ms Brackett previously in the briefings that this has been a process where goodwill has come to the fore between the club and the council to get to this point. This discount lease arrangement is a really good set of principles, but the devil is in the detail with it, and how it actually works is the key to it. That it works well is the key to it, and that it is monitored and evaluated as it's going forward is a key to it as well. For me, I would love to see this particular framework grow and prosper over the years. We have a long lease here, 10 years with 2 5-year extensions potentially, depending on the voting tonight. And it will require a process of continuous improvement to continually prevent and reduce harm in this community. So I think the ongoing evaluation, I know the ongoing evaluation will be a critical success factor as far as the community is concerned. The way forward for some people has been to reduce the number of poker machines at clubs, to remove loyalty programs, reduce trading hours, require $1 maximum bet machines to come in, and require a full commercial lease to be paid if the dollar machines aren't provided. That is not something that's been supported by the officers, but I think that's something that should be on the table as we go forward and discuss with the clubs that have poker machines on council land in the years ahead just how we do prevent harm going forward. I stand to say that I'm pleased that we've got
Councillor Hedditch, would you like an extension?
About 10 seconds.
Okay.
That we do have a discount framework that has the elements in it. I look forward to the capital investments that will come from the Snorbans Club, and I wish the club well with those. It needs them, and it does a great job with its sporting and community provision. But I also wish the club well in terms of its continuous improvement and the work it's going to do in terms of dealing with harm minimisation and harm reduction in the surrounding community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers for this report? No. I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Sorry, we'll have to put that vote again. Those in favour, please raise your hand. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those against? None, and we've got 1 that abstains. Okay, thank you. Carried. All right, item 12.7, Draft Albion Train Station Urban Design Principles. Could I please ask Neil Whiteside to briefly introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is for Council to consider endorsing the draft Albion Station Urban Design Principles for community consultation. In July 2018, the State Government announced the Melbourne Airport Rail will be built via Sunshine, with alignment moving through Albion Station before crossing under Ballarat Road and along the freight line to Melbourne Airport. This means the Melbourne Airport Rail will likely necessitate major alterations to a new train station Albion and significant alterations to the immediate surrounding land. The draft urban design principles have been developed for Albion train station and, if adopted by Council, will inform all discussions with State Government concerning the planning, design and delivery of projects impacting on the Albion Station precinct and immediate surrounding areas. It's proposed the endorsed urban design principle be released for community consultation for a 4-week period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Whiteside. Any questions or points of clarification, councillors? Councillor Hedditch.
Just regarding the consultation period. Excuse me, just regarding the consultation period, we've got 4 weeks and it's now middle to third week of November. Just wondering about the time that people will be able to put to this with the Christmas period coming up.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the officer recommendation is 4 weeks. The consultation would commence this Friday, would close on the 20th of December. So considered there's enough time for people to make a submission. That enables council officers to consider that over January and provide a report back to the chamber in early Feb. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or points of clarification? Okay, do I have a mover? Councillor David, a seconder? Councillor Hedditch. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As chairman of the Connect Brimbank portfolio, which includes public transport and freight, I was pleased when in July 2018, the state government announced to deliver the Melbourne Airport rail link known as MAR via Sunshine Station. In October last year, the state government launched the Western Rail plan showing the future investments Victoria will need to deliver fast, high-capacity rail network to the rapidly growing suburbs and regional cities in the west. The plan provides details on the MAR via Sunshine, 2 new electrified metropolitan rail lines to Melton and Wyndham Vale, 3 level crossings removals and 2 new stations. Albion Station may need to be rebuilt as a result of the project. The draft Albion train station urban design principles report details the impacts and works will have on Albion Station. 10 draft urban design principles have been prepared for Council consideration to inform all discussions with the state government concerning the planning, design and delivery of projects impacting on the Albion Station precinct. One of those is to deliver and integrate the redevelopment of the station precinct. Another is to prioritise safety as a design consideration. The urban design principles will be released for community consultation for a 4-week period from the 22nd of November. Council will be advocating to the state government on the important need to consult with the community at every stage of a project implementation. I commend the report to the Council, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Hedditch, would you like to speak to this report?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, when I saw this come forward, I went, wow, how good's this? Albion Station is badly in need of urban design principles and a good workover. So I think on behalf of community, I'd just like to stand here and say thanks to everyone who's done the work around this. The community will love it. I just hope that we get a really good set of submissions back and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.8, Draft Sunshine to Melbourne Airport Rail Corridor Urban Design Principles. Could I ask Neil Whiteside again to introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So similar to the last report, this report is for Council to consider endorsing the draft Sunshine to Melbourne Airport Rail Corridor Urban Design Principles for community consultation. The draft urban design principles have been developed to guide Council's advocacy for works that occur along the rail corridor, essentially from Sunshine right out to the airport. It's proposed the endorsed draft urban design be released at the same time as the previous Albion Station urban design principles for consultation for a 4-week period. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any questions or points of clarification, councillors? No? Do I have a mover for this report? Councillor David, a seconder? Councillor Tarkos. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this report?
Again, Madam Mayor, thank you. The draft Sunshine to Melbourne Airport Rail Corridor Urban Design Principles will seek the best possible urban design and economic outcomes for the Brimbank community for works delivered by the state government along the rail corridor. The draft urban design principles align with the already adopted Sunshine Station Super Hub urban design principles and the draft Albion Station precinct urban design principles which we have just spoken about. Both urban design principles will be released for a 4-week community consultation at the same time as from the 22nd of November. It is important to Council retains a strong voice and sit at the table to advocate for works that occur along the rail corridor as part of the Melbourne Airport Rail project. This includes the corridor from Albion Station to the Merrigan River, from Sunshine Station to Stony Creek. This is another significant and exciting project transforming Brimbank. This report helps from frame Council's outgoing advocacy endeavours to deliver the best urban design outcomes for the community in the development of the major infrastructure projects. Again, I commend the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Tarkos.
Madam Mayor, again, similar to the Albion Station UDF, It's important that the local character and heritage is respected for the Sunshine Airport Rail Corridor UDP in a holistic manner, and paying particular attention to the sound mitigation through noise walls and the 30% green canopy cover to public realm, as well as protecting the existing flora and fauna. And we were lucky enough, some of our councillors were lucky enough to go on a tour of the grasslands recently, and we were able to visit the iconic site there. And I was really impressed by the retention of those grasslands. And for many people that pass through Sunshine and the Albion corridor, the things that stick in their minds when they look out of the trains is that the Albion towers plus the grasslands and the kangaroos, and that is what is the imprint on people's minds when they pass this. So it's important that we preserve that heritage, but also enhance it so that people feel like that they want to come and visit Sunshine and Albion. Well, anything will be an improvement there. It's a sadly neglected area, but I congratulate all the work done in this UDP and fully endorse the officer's report.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Any other speakers for this report? Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to echo the comments that have been made before me. I also want to say how important it is that this cross-corridor movement is protected and enhanced where we can. I think in item 2, the treating of new structures, bridges, noise walls to ensure urban quality design outcomes for amenity, legibility, design quality, heritage and environmental concerns is a big issue. We know what's going on with the airport at the moment around noise and quality of life issues. I know a lot of people are saying locally around the Sunshine Albion area, we will have a whole lot of new trains coming through eventually, and it's really important that we have the right treatments in place to mitigate noise and to protect health and wellbeing and so on. I think people are also keen to protect heritage, as people have said before me, from the Black Arch down on Stony Creek through to the facilities that are at the Sunshine Station, the signal boxes, through to the Heritage Bridge over the river, and anything else as well. It is really important to people. We have had a lot of heritage knocked over the years. We don't have much left, and it is really important to community that it is looked after. The environmental concerns also, I think we're having a lot of discussion around the, we've got another report later about Waterways of the West. We have a lot of discussion about our grasslands and how we might expand them for future generations, given that climate change and that is coming along. I think the other aspect around future-proofing station locations and maximising urban renewal is really important. We do need to try and capture the value that comes from the investments that go on. We do need, when we go for the value capture, we do need to have really good quality products and I guess really good and effective services going through the city. I don't think we'll get a lot of value capture if we've got an airport rail and a regional rail line that isn't performing highly and people are valuing it highly. If it has delays and various other things, too many stops, we can end up with a station complex that isn't as effective as it should be. So for me, these principles are really important. I look forward to the community consultation on them and I commend them to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Any other speakers?
Thank you,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Guiducci.
Together with the previous report, Madam Mayor, this one and that one basically go together as well. And I wanted to congratulate the council officers on putting together this urban design principles. The fact that the Melbourne Airport Rail Link was announced a couple of years ago now and is now coming to fruition with the community coming on board is extremely important. It's definitely the most important project in this area. I don't think we'll ever see another important project like this come to this area. So it's very, very important that we get it right. I urge the community to get on board, give us their ideas. It's a perfect opportunity now. We have to get it right and we have to support all of the environmental, heritage, everything else that my fellow councillors have said beforehand. So we must get it right. I do, as I said, urge the community to come on board, give us their ideas, and we will then translate that and make it part of the submissions to the state government. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goodicci. Any other speakers? Councillor Farm.
I myself feel very excited about how many rail projects that are gonna go through Brimbank and Albion. And recently I have visitors that come from overseas, and the first thing they say when they arrive in Melbourne, so green and so fresh. Then when they come to Brimbank, I said, you know, I have so many other things that I want to tell you about our grassland, about how we're going to develop in the future, and maybe you should come back and see how we change. In terms of, you know, upgrading our public transport, you know, our place of visit, our heritage, and, you know, all our reserve. Then the feedback came back when they went to Sydney and come back to Melbourne. They said, you know, we can't compare Sydney and Melbourne because you have so much more that we're looking for in terms of environment and public transport. That's a good thing to say. Then they said, well, but you already have the train, like, you know, tram and buses. Why do you build more? I said, well, we keep trying to offering more for our community and our people, and also for people around the world to come here, not to Melbourne, but also to Brimbank to see what we have to offer. So, yeah, it's not only me that's excited to see it, but I think there will be many, many more people to also waiting to see the change in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farm. Any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.9, the Melbourne Rail Plan 2020 to 2050. Could I please ask Neil Whiteside to introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Rail Futures Institute has prepared the Melbourne Rail Plan 2020 to 2050 as a strategic document they consider necessary to support Melbourne's projected growth over the next 30 years. The plan outlines a broad range of suggestions for Melbourne's public transport network that Rail Futures Institute consider necessary to meet the needs of the city as its population grows to over 8 million people in 2050. In the absence of a statewide integrated transport plan developed by the Victorian Government, the plan developed by Rail Futures Institute is one of the only few publicly available documents that aims to strategically plan for the development of Melbourne's public transport network. This report recommends the noting of the work of Rail Futures Institute, and that Council consider writing to the relevant ministers requesting the development of a Victorian Transport Plan in line with the current legislation, as well as developing a robust multimodal integrated transport strategy for Melbourne's West that leverages the strategic position of the Sunshine Super Hub and the priority precinct to support regional access to employment, retail and recreational opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No? Do I have a mover for this report? Councillor Hedditch, a seconder? Councillor Tarkos, Councillor Hedditch, would you like to speak to this report? Thank you.
A number of us went along to the launch of this particular report, Councillor Lancashire and myself, and a number of officers, including Mr Whiteside, and it was a very interesting presentation that was given by Rail Futures Institute at MAV. The plan is comprehensive. It takes a 30-year view. It basically puts in place a series of interventions that will improve and connect the transport systems, the rail systems around Melbourne into the future and create a lot of benefit if it's funded. The big winners are the city and the southeastern suburbs, and the western suburbs also get some significant improvements, but nowhere near the level of the other side of town in this 30-year period. And it begs the question, and it's a really good report, but it just shows the dimensions of the task. We have a lot of people going to work, we have a lot of people wanting to get around the community for various reasons, but there is very limited bus and other opportunities for public transport. And that, I don't think, is going to change quickly enough for the population growth that's coming into this area. So afterwards, John Hirsch from the Rail Futures Institute was talking to a few of us and said, one thing that local government needs to think about when considering this report is what it could do better what it could offer in terms of suggestions to do better with this network to make it even better in your LGA, and then put it together at regional level to make it better at regional level. For us in the Western region, given that context where we're not going to have the level of improvement of the South East or the city and still have significant gaps, his advice was that we need to think about, and this is a budget conversation for us as a council, think about ways of redirecting resources into looking at getting people on board who can work with the officers and the council of the day to identify ways of strengthening the plan that they've put forward and getting back to them with it so they can build it into future plans that they'll put to government. I think the important thing here, it's not in the recommendations, and I support all the recommendations, but the other one that we need to take on board in our budget conversations is just how Brimbank Council reviews this plan from a Brimbank Council perspective and a Western Region perspective, how it thinks about the improvements that could be made to it to make public transport, integrated transport even better in this city, and then talks to our regional colleagues in the West about that integrated transport plan and all the things that are being asked, supporting things, but actually doing some work ourselves on this for the long term is really important. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Councillor Tarkos?
Wanted to reiterate everything that Councillor Hedditch said, but also say that an integrated transport policy is the core of equity as well. One of the things that our community really struggles with is access to public transport to get to jobs hubs, to get to hospitals, to get to shops, to get to cemeteries, all kinds of things. And not everyone in our municipality can afford to run a car, especially students that are starting out in new jobs rely heavily, and people with disabilities, and having that integration is fundamental. In the West, again, as Councillor Hedditch said, the parity is just non-existent compared to what the South East is getting, and this is where our role as councillors have to step in and advocate for integration that we identify as working like better bus services to jobs hubs in times where jobs start and jobs finish, rather than buses that just end up wandering and going and not really servicing the needs of our community. So the extension of the Metropolitan Rail network to Wyndham Vale and Melton as a priority, with additional electrified tracks removing all the level crossings in Deer Park and Sunshine. The construction of a new station at Delegate by 2030 is another one, and the extension of the 59 tram from Airport West to Melbourne Airport along Melrose Drive, which is on our municipal boundary with Moonee Valley, and the development of 3 medium capacity transit routes are what the core developments are by RF5. But I think we, as Councillor Hedditch said, is that this statewide integration of public transport needs to be looked at a Brimbank level, and we need to sit down and strategically think of how we will support access to employment, to retail and recreation opportunities across Brimbank. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Do I have any other speakers for this report?
Yes,
Councillor Goodichere.
Madam Mayor, I wish to also echo the sentiments of my fellow councillors. Of course, we would be supporting the Melbourne Rail Plan, but I refer specifically to Part C of the recommendation, Part C2, developing an integrated transport strategy across all modes of transport for Melbourne's West that leverages the strategic position of the Sunshine Super Hub and the Sunshine Priority Precinct to support access to employment, retail and recreation opportunities. And the reason that I mention that, Madam Mayor, is there are 2 very more valuable elements that have come into the transport strategy, which we'd never had in Brimbank before. Councillor David and I were part of the Inner Western Transport Strategy consultation and another transport strategy consultation. And, you know, money's been spent on consultations and engagement and consultants and overboard. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, well, I hope this doesn't end up being an old plan with a new name or an old plan with a new name, because we really do need this at the moment, and we need for all of the elements that the other councillors have said to be brought into account, especially with the Melbourne Airport Rail Link and Sunshine being a priority precinct. So I urge the state government to listen to what we're asking them to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodichere. Any other speakers for this report? Councillor David?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Wonderful report, and listening to my fellow councillors, extremely good happening in front of us. And I do look at it and I say to myself, we're forgetting one thing, and I spoke about it many of times. We're still the only city divided. That's what we do. We haven't got a connection between the West and the East. And I hope to God, with all this happening, this will happen eventually. I pray to God that will happen. I do, really do. Because it's not fair to a lot of people. Because I remember that part of the city, the capital of sunshine. That was the capital of sunshine. All of a sudden it's dead. And all we can see at night time is a few Sudanese young people congregating around. That's what they do there. There's nothing there. And I hope that God will change for the better, not only for the community, for the well, because that's what we're expecting, as Councillor Pam said. People coming from the joint, coming to Australia, or going back to their countries, wherever they're passing through sunshine. And that's a wonderful thing. So, a wonderful report again. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Our next item is 12.10, Review of National Airports Safeguarding Framework Implementation. Could I ask Kelvin Walsh to present a brief report?
With pleasure, Madam Mayor. This item provides for Council consideration a draft submission to the Federal Government's review of the National Airports Safeguarding Framework. The National Airports Safeguarding Advisory Group have commenced a review of the implementation of the National Airports Safeguarding Framework. This review will look at the implementation of the framework across planning jurisdictions throughout Australia, and that of course includes Brimbank. The draft submission to the Federal Government's review has been prepared and is attached at Attachment 1, and Council is asked to endorse the draft submission for submission.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Do I have a mover for this report?
Moved as per business report.
Thank you. Councillor Takos, a seconder for this report? Councillor Hedditch. Okay, would the mover like to speak to this report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to support the draft submission made by the Council to this review, and note that at present there is very little awareness of this framework or guidelines and what their potential impact on land use planning are, and that potential changes to planning policy could have a huge impact to planning and also have financial impacts to landowners, developers, governments, particularly around the changes to the planning schemes around the airport. My biggest concern with this framework as the councillor of a ward that abuts onto the airport will be the amenity impacts of increased aircraft movements, particularly from a health perspective to our community and the greater Brimbank community. I know that the council has been advocating to update the MAEO, Melbourne Airport Environs Overlay mapping, which is currently based on the noise contours of the 2008 master plan. Since then, we have had a 2018 and now a 2013 and 2018 master plan come out. Again, these matters remain unresolved and are mentioned so in the council submission. Whilst this framework sets out a guideline, I grapple to really understand how it would be implemented without formal planning controls, such as the design and development overlay, which can restrict a building's height and structures close to the airport. I therefore echo our council's concerns with the framework. I feel it is underdeveloped, and whilst our council seeks to implement through its planning scheme airport legislation, awareness of this framework is considered limited and, in my mind, outdated. Meaningful implementation of the framework would require the Victorian Government to amend all planning schemes in a timely manner to include a range of planning tools that require guidelines to be considered in land use and the development applications. Suffice to say, until there is a statutory link or requirement to use the framework is unlikely to be effectively used. So I fully endorse the submission made by the Council in response to this review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased that Council is making a submission on this matter and that the framework is there. We have been struggling as a community and a council or I have anyhow, to understand just how this whole interplay between planning systems and I guess noise management, complaints management and various other things for airports and air services operated is a very convoluted and complex system in inverted commas, I would put it. I'm particularly interested in Guideline A, the measures for managing impacts of aircraft noise, and note that the comments that are made about Sydney Airport, where the majority of noise complaints are received in areas outside the 20 ANEF, that has been a particular concern to local residents as this consultation has gone on recently. I also note that there's been a collection of information by the community from an app called Explain that you put up to the plane in the sky and it gives you information about the decibel reading for that particular plane and the exact location it's in. And we have, I'm looking here at data that's come from Braybrook, Sunshine, Kealba, Deer Park, Keilor East, Keilor, Hillside, Keilor Downs, Keilor Park, Gladstone Park, Diggers Rest, Sunbury and Williamstown and West Footscray. And it measures decibels, the high range of all those. They go 50, 73, 76, 87, 80, 88, 88, 88, 88, 74, 62, 68, 82, 78 and 73. Now they're big decibel ranges and I guess for me it says that we have to get this right and that the Commonwealth Government needs to get this right. I know that these sorts of tools will be used extensively over the next 12 months and a heap of data will be gathered in this community about what's actually going on with noise. So for noise contour development and development generally and whatever, we need to have a really strong framework. I think there's also a lot of work that needs to be done to understand the wind shear, Guideline B, the risk of building generation of wind shear and turbulence at airports. We've had a lot of commentary from the airport about that and the impacts it's having on their planning and we need to understand that better as well. But it's a great, I guess, response from Council. We are trying very hard to put forward the best possible advice we can to the Commonwealth bodies that are running this consultation, and there is a hell of a lot of material in there that is valuable. I look forward to further developing it over the coming 12 months as we go further into the processes regarding the approval or otherwise of the North-South runway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to this report? Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think when the people hear about the Melbourne Airport is connected, a lot of people very exciting, but also the main thing people is worry is like Councillor Harris mentioned, it's about the noise and the environment effect. So we have to make sure it's the land use and the development of the compatible with the operation of Melbourne Airport in accordance with the relevant airport theory and the master land with the safe. And also, I think about the shielding people from the impact of aircraft noise to requirement, the noise attention, the measure is the building and another noise is sensitive building. We all understand it. Melbourne Airport, is really convenient for the local people and also for the people from overseas. But we have to thinking about the neighbor living it on that area. It really concerns them. I think a lot of issues they bring up it about the noise, and we have to concern on this. Even we know it Melbourne Airport, it's really successful in the future for the older member, but we still think about the local people too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. Do I have any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, item 12.11, Waterways of the West submission. Could I ask Kelvin Walsh if you could please present a report for us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
The Victorian Government has appointed a Ministerial Advisory Committee to make recommendations on how best to protect the health, amenity, access and community values of waterways in the West. This item is for Council to consider endorsing a submission to the Ministerial Advisory Committee. Council is asked to endorse the draft submission at attachment 2 to this report.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions from councillors or points of clarification? No. Do I have a mover for this report? Councillor Heddich, a seconder. Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Heddich, would you like to speak?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved as per the business papers, and I would like to say how important this particular exercise, the Waterways of the West discussion paper consultation, is, and how important it is that Council's submission is a really strong, supportive one, and that it is. Council has strongly supported the 7 principles and 7 key directions that are in the Waterways of the West report, and strongly supported them, and has put a case together overall that is very, very good. I think there are a range of issues that behind the scenes here that we need to talk some more about. This particular report came out about the same time as we consulted on the Sydenham Park Draft Master Plan, and this particular consultation process draws our attention to the importance of traditional owner care of country and traditional owner involvement in the management and future management and oversighting of the waterways of the West as a living entity. And I think for me that is really important that we take into account that matter when we look at Sydenham Park going forward. I noticed in the submission that we have made mention of Sydenham Park, and we've made mention of river law and other aspects of this particular piece of work that's been done by the Ministerial Advisory Committee. It's a very valuable piece of work, and the river law, I think, needs to be supported. We do need a whole of catchment area approach, because every tributary feeds into the river, every grassland that's there also is part of that environment, and the flora and fauna that operate on it. One big thing in here is the introduction of a cultural values and cultural heritage approach, particularly Indigenous, and that is used effectively as a way of managing the waterways of the West going forward. I think there's a whole range of really good contributions from the officers and the team that have been put together. It's very thorough, and having had a very strong briefing with a number of directors and councillors, I'm pleased to say that my views have changed. I was fairly critical to start with, but I have seen the light, and I have I just wanted to acknowledge that, but I also wanted to say that I think there is still some work to do in terms of how we align this piece of work with the Sydenham Park Draft Master Plan going forward. And I look forward to that piece of work and the consultation that comes here, but also the feedback that comes from the MAC around Sydenham Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heddich. Councillor Tarkos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just taking one of the 7 directions of the Waterways of the West, which I feel is probably the most important one, and that is protecting and enhancing water quality and waterway health. I think in the West we would all agree that our waterways have been abused for decades and have been used as giant drains from polluters, industries, and recent times there has been also the PFAS contamination and toxic runoffs from toxic chemical fires. This has been disproportionately high and characteristic in the West. This council has adopted an environmental justice policy as part of its key advocacy platforms for our community. I feel that the Waterways of the West has some important ideals, and they include proclaiming that rivers and waters are living entities. However, unless this is embedded in legislation as being living entities and enshrined in river law, not much will change. I also support that our traditional owners be provided a permanent voice to represent the waterways, and that Melbourne Water lead and also drive the implementation. However, I believe that all community members, all groups and all users of our waterways are stakeholders and owners of the rivers, and we need to be the keepers and protectors of the waterways we all share and we have a responsibility to care for. I note also that the deployment of the EPA Opal officers to 2020 is a key priority listed in the Waterways of the West. I would like to see this to be made a permanent feature here in the West because of the disproportionately high contamination that we've had in our waterways. I also draw our council to the fact that so many thousands of fish have died. There are signs that say not to fish in our waterways, all signs that our waterways need definite protection and attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Do I have any other speakers for this report? Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to endorse what Councillor Heddich and Councillor Tarkos have already mentioned with regards to the importance of this submission and the need for it. The waterways of the Melbourne's West have suffered from fragmented management, pollution, and other impacts. I would like to acknowledge the great work that has been done by council officers to prepare this submission. Important to note also that Council on the 21st of October 2019 wrote to the Wurundjeri Tribe Land and Compensation Cultural Heritage Council Incorporation to formally seek a meeting to discuss the draft Sydenham Park Master Plan and request a formal organizational submission by the closing date, which is the Friday, the 27th of November 2019. Important to note also that Council is also seeking a meeting in the submission on the draft master plan from the waterways of the West MAC, given the recent release of the discussion paper. I commend this submission to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Do I have any other? Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just get to add in for some more with the all being told by Councillor Tackle, Councillor Herrick, and Councillor Ball. First, I would like to congratulate and thank you very much for all the team of environment, all the hard work, and all every people have involved to get the submission for this project. I think we need to understand it where we are now, where we need to get to go, and how to get there. So that's it important. I think it to get the member in the community to get to involve education for the people to understand how to enhance the water quality and the waterway health. We want to have our submission, but we need the member in the community to get involved and to get to understand how important of our waterway. And I think it to do like this, and we be aware we have large member of ethnic community. And I did mention a lot, we need to educate it by some of the main language to all the different community for them to understand. If the submission is to be provided to the public, to communities, so we need to have the translation in the different language. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is 12.12, submission to the Planning and Building Approvals Process Review. Kelvin Walsh,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
like to introduce this report?
Sorry, too enthusiastic. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The State Government's Red Tape Commissioner has undertaken a review of the planning and building approvals process and released a discussion paper that identifies 27 opportunities and 102 recommendations for improvement. This item is for Council to consider endorsing a draft submission to the review process, and Council is asked to endorse the draft submission at Attachment 1 to this report.
Thank you, Kelvin. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? Okay, do I have a mover for this report? Councillor Borg, thank you.
I'll move the motion as per business papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goodichere. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the intensive work involved in the preparation of this submission to the Planning and Building Approval Process Review. Council's submission took into consideration a number of matters, including the 3-week consultation with the local government being insufficient, the implementation of some of the recommendations require additional resources that need to be available to Council, the lack of consideration to current improvements being made to the system, including Smart Plan, the oversimplification of the response to matters that are complex and require time, expertise, and significant consideration to resolve. And finally, the need for greater regard to localized context and the role of councils. I would like to commend this report to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Councillor Goodichere.
Just a few words, Madam Mayor. I note the report and I actually do commend the review and welcome the review. Thank you to all the officers for putting all that work together. I note the financial restraints, like the significant financial impacts. Yes, there will be, and resources will be required to work with state government to implement the recommendations that are significant and they have not been quantified. So I certainly hope that the state government will be forthcoming with those resources in our regard. But I couldn't help but chuckle when I read the Red Tape Commissioner. I just saw red tape running across everything. So I welcome the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodichere. Do I have any other speakers for this report? Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the point I'd like to make is how important this particular piece of work is and this particular issue is. We do need a really safe and an excellent process that goes on in this area, and there have been a number of instances where we've had problems emerge, we've had cladding issues, we've had all sorts of issues that have come up in various different domains on this, I guess, end-to-end process that's being described here and the various aspects of it. So congratulations to the officers on responding in a 3-week period. It says a lot, I think, in terms of, I don't know what it says really. It's very, very unfortunate that we only have small amounts of time like this to actually do a job that's needed on a really, really important issue that can impact so many people's lives. So I commend the officers' work. I think when you have to respond in timeframes like this, and there's been a piece of quality work done here, that we should applaud that effort and also feed back to government that it's not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Do I have any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is 12.13, Draft Indoor Sports Facilities Feasibility Study 2019. Could I please ask Kath Brackett to introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is for Council to consider endorsing the draft Indoor Stadiums Facilities Feasibility Study, which is a draft at Attachment 1 for community consultation. The study considers the current provision of indoor sports courts in Brimbank and neighbouring municipalities. Indoor sports considered include basketball, netball, badminton, volleyball, table tennis, futsal, which are all popular in Brimbank. The study makes recommendations aimed at making sure there's enough indoor sports facilities now and into the future. and it's recommended that Council endorse the officer recommendation as in the business papers.
Thank you. Councillors, do I have any questions or points of clarification? Do I have a mover for this report?
I have an amended motion, Madam Mayor. Not sure whether the amended motion is going to appear on screen because it's quite lengthy.
Yes, it will. Just a little bit of time.
Okay. So I will wait for it to come up on the screen.
You can commence reading through it, Councillor Goodichay.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it is that Council endorses the draft Indoor Sports Facilities Feasibility Study 2019 at Attachment 1 to this report for community consultation for a minimum period of 8 weeks and invites written submissions. Writes to peak bodies in the various sports seeking validation of Council's findings and their advice and support to progress this matter. Writes to the Minister for Education, James Merlino MP, the Western Region Education Department Regional Director and local school principals, informing them of this study and seeking feedback on further sport and recreation partnership opportunities at Brimbank schools. D. Writes to all federal and Victorian MPs with an interest in the Brimbank community, advising them of this study. I would like to hope that all MPs would be interested. The next steps in seeking their advocacy and support in an ongoing way. E. Writes to the Victorian Minister for Priority Precincts, the Honourable Gavin Jennings, MLC, requesting a strategic land use assessment be undertaken in the Sunshine Priority Precinct at Sunshine College's Ardia South Campus, Glengala Road, West Sunshine, to determine the suitability of a significant part of the site for a 6 to 12 court indoor stadium or other significant sport and recreation facility. F. Investigates land purchase and or partnership opportunities for indoor sporting facilities in North and West Sunshine. And G. Receives a further report detailing any submissions received on the draft Indoor Sports Facilities Feasibility Study 2019 and presents a final draft of the Indoor Sports Facilities Feasibility Study 2019 to Council for consideration, which identifies but is not limited to the following. Clearly, the scope, need for basketball, netball, volleyball, futsal, badminton and table tennis courts and facilities in different preferred locations. The indicative costs of facilities and or land purchase in those locations. The potential partnerships that can assist with improving access to indoor courts in the short and medium terms in particular. The preferred operating and financial models for these new indoor facilities, and an initial short, medium and long-term program of activity that can be tested more robustly in a more detailed feasibility study business case process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goodichay. Do I have a seconder for this motion, Councillor Hedich? Would the mover like to speak to this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do have some notes which did attribute to yourself, Madam Mayor, in the Healthy Brimbank portfolio. So I would like to speak to those. So I'm very pleased to speak to this feasibility study, as it not only identifies the key sporting infrastructure challenges posed by recreation participation trends and population change in Brimbank, but also presents some solutions. There are 39 courts in Brimbank, 7 are council owned, 28 are in schools and universities, and 4 are privately owned. Basketball and netball have the highest number of participants, followed by table tennis and badminton. Volleyball and futsal are also popular. Now, many Brimbank residents do travel outside of Brimbank to access these courts, and conversely, a lot of people from outside Brimbank also come to access our courts. So some of the key findings show that there is a future need for additional indoor courts, especially in the south of Brimbank. Therefore, we need to optimise the use of existing sports facilities here in Brimbank. We need to develop additional facilities at existing sports sites in Brimbank. For example, community access to private facilities via a joint use agreement, for example, again in schools. We also need to develop new sports facilities in the short and medium term and consider a future regional indoor sports facility. In the meantime, we also need to develop partnership agreements with neighbouring municipalities and local organisations, especially schools, to negotiate increased community use. Madam Mayor, I'd just like to add that no doubt we do need more indoor sports facilities. Sport is an integral part of our life, especially in Brimbank, and it's essential for our health and well-being. So whatever we can achieve in that area, I would welcome, and I'm sure this council would welcome as well. Thank you. Lastly, I'd like to thank all the officers for their work in this space. Thank you.
Thank you for presenting that report for me, Councillor Goodachie. Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. Councillor Goodachie has given an excellent summary of what's involved in this particular report. For me, it is an excellent piece of scoping in terms of the overall need and requirement, and it has been a really good process of identifying sites and preferred sites going forward. I also think that the devil is in the detail, and we've got an amended motion in front of us that talks to some of that, with a view to going out to consultation, getting a lot of feedback from the community and various others, but also then coming back to council with something that is very concrete and granular, that gives us preferred locations, types of facilities, numbers of courts, some cost estimates and so on, and also looks very importantly at partnering with schools and others and getting the value we keep. As I think a number of us were saying at dinner tonight, we drive past many schools and we see a vacant basketball court, a sporting oval or whatever. We've got to get better at using what we've got. We have very little land left in Brimbank now. It's all been sold by various parts of government or other organisations, and it will become an urgent need not too far into the future. We do not have any buffers left to be able to give future generations the opportunity to develop new sporting facilities or whatever it might be in the community infrastructure space. So land and opportunity are really important. We need to use what we've got better, but we also need to get a good, strong report back on this, because an indoor stadium, I think we've seen what's been going on around the community with young people, not enough to do. We have a number of limitations in terms of sport and recreation provision. We have a number of limitations in terms of art and music and various others. I don't know how many times we have to say it or talk about it, but somehow we have to get the message through to different levels of government, the philanthropic sectors, the private and voluntary sectors, that we really do need some help from them in, putting together resources to develop the facilities that this community needs. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak? Councillor Bork.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a fantastic piece of work that is highly needed. It provides evidence and strategic directions for Council on how best to manage the identified gaps. We are very familiar with the disturbing statistics when it comes to health-related matters in Brimbank and issues that relate to youth, as Councillor Hedditch mentioned, especially youth disengagement. Sports facilities are more than just a place to play sport. They provide a space for people of different walks of life to connect, and they even provide a platform to hook on to other areas such as education and human services, both for the participants as well as for family members that accompany young children. I am very much looking forward to the input of the community in the upcoming consultations and the final report that will come to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Do I have any other speakers for this report? No. I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Next, we've got item 12.14, contract number 20/2733, Hampshire Road, Stage 3 construction. Could I please ask Neil Whiteside to introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is for Council to consider awarding contract number 20/2733, Hampshire Road Stage 3 construction. The Hampshire Road Sunshine Master Plan Stage 3 provides a multi-use space in the centre of the Sunshine Town Centre between Bennett Place and Devonshire Road. The creation of a civic green will allow for larger cultural events as well as encouraging day-to-day social interaction, providing safe and inviting seating and meeting spaces. The tender evaluation panel has considered that 2 Construct Proprietary Limited has the expertise and capability to complete the works under the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Councillors, do I have any questions or points of clarification? Okay, do I have a mover for this?
I'd like to move an amended motion.
Okay, would you like to read that?
That Council A awards contract 202733 Hampshire Road Stage 3 construction to 2 Construct Proprietary Limited for the tendered amount of 5,477,689.29, including full scope of works. B, refers the additional funding required to the 2021 capital works budget. And C, signs and seals contract number 20/2733 Hampshire Road Stage 3 construction.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Do I have a seconder for this?
Second.
Councillor David. Councillor Hedditch, would you like to speak to the amended motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would. This particular piece of work is one that was consulted on widely with the community and the trader community in particular. That consultation was a very successful one. We used some innovative technologies, and we had some sliding, before and after type images of what was to occur here at this Civic Green project. That particular consultation was really well received. I think we had a record in terms of the number of people supporting and liking it. It was commented on extensively, that consultation, and the love of this particular project by the community that was really looking forward to it happening. The traders were also, some of them were quite concerned about this, but when they saw it, they saw the value in it and committed to it. Those same traders have been expressing concerns about the loss of car parking and the lack of substitute car parking at an extended multi-deck car park. These particular works were that are to be proposed to be added back in terms of the full scope of works are things like standard cement mixes for use instead of proprietary products, inclusion again of raised planter walls for grassed areas, water features and timber deck areas, as they were part of the original consultation, part of the agreement between traders and community and council about what was needed here, given what was going to go on in this particular area. I think we've also seen over recent times with the airport rail and various rail infrastructure investments that there's a need to attract investment to this area. We also need to attract people to this area to make it safer. We've had a number of youth issues and various other issues go on in the Hampshire Road area over recent weeks, months, and we do need to do things that, bring life to this particular area, but also bring community members in to be using this area regularly over, every day of the week. This particular area, from the council building up to Devonshire Road, or Bennett Place up to Devonshire Road, will change it dramatically and change it for the better. And with all the things that have been, that haven't gone ahead in this particular area in recent years, this is one that should go ahead at full scope. It is important to the area that we, beautify it, honour the commitment we've made in the consultation with the full scope. We have this conversation about the Premier honouring his commitments and the Treasurer saying how difficult it is to find budgets to do it. But the point of it is that the Premier honours his commitments. In this particular case, we do have a budget issue with this, but we have a more important issue about activating this community, attracting investment to it, and making it safe. So for me, I think it is imperative that Council consider very strongly funding the full scope of works. It will require additional funding to be put towards the 2021 capital works budget, but it is important for this area, really important for this area, I can't stress it enough, that we do deliver what we have consulted on to traders and community alike, and that we do deliver an outcome that is investment attracting, that is adding to community safety, and that is bringing more and more people into this area to make it a more lively and viable and attractive area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this report?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I just couldn't explain it anymore, as Councillor Hedditch says, and I heard him touching a little bit about Devonshire Road. Really, that road needs uplifting. And just on that, we've got the car park, which it needs to be perhaps make it easy for people parking at that car park. I'm referring to the multi-level car parking. It's you go in and coming out, you can't go turn right at all. You have to go all the way down to the next crossing and come back if you want to turn in. So I think all well said by Councillor Hedditch, and I support every word of it. It needs to be done. I know that it's looking at a lot of money, but eventually it has to be done. If we're talking about Super Hub and all these changes before us, I think we'll have to look at it in a very, very interesting way. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this report? Councillor Borg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support the amended motion. I believe with the vision that we have about Sunshine with regards to the Super Hub and the mall, I think we need to invest, make this investment at Sunshine. As Councillor Hedditch said, we need to make it, to beautify it, and beauty attracts for a number of reasons. More for investment, make it more livable, and make it as attractive as possible. So I'm more than happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Are there any other speakers for this report? Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support for Councillor Harris, but we all think and we understand it when Hampshire Road is upright, it will be make Hampshire Road, even in the sunshine, it look more beautiful and attractive more people to come to this area. But we need to consultation with the business people in along this street. The one they concern is when we remove the 37 of car park, is make difficult for the customer, and during it the contractor working on this area, it make it difficult, and they maybe lost a lot of income from the business. So we have to think about the comment from the business people in along Hampshire Road. That is the feedback I received from them. They say when we do the upright, it maybe during this time they will lose it the income from their business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. Do I have any other speakers? Councillor Farn.
I also want to echo what other councillors have been said, but again, especially with what Councillor Chung were mentioning of removing 37 on-street car park bay, and how that would affect the car parking in Sunshine. For the past 3 years, going to Sunshine to do work and meeting and going around the shop, I have seen the increasing of traffic in Sunshine, especially in also around Vic Roads buildings and all other places. Sometimes I can't even get a car park if it's on business hour in the multi-deck. So I understand this is not to talk about car parking, it's about Hampshire Road Stage 3, but what next when we're doing that Stage 3? Where do people go? But don't get me wrong, because I'm been thinking of, removing these on-street car parking bays on Hampshire Road. I'm quite okay with it because I see how many times people double park and they just leave their car there and just run in and out. So it's a nightmare. But yeah, what is the next step? How do we solve that problem? At the moment, I think it's already really crowded. So I think we have to give that answer to the community and the trader as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Farm. Do I have any others?
It's just a question, Madam Mayor. In referring to the 2021 Capital Works budget, is there a confidence that those savings can be made within the Capital Works budget? And would it be the Harvest Award Capital Works budget?
So, excuse me, Councillor Heddage. This question is to the Director.
Whiteside.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Whiteside.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. The referral to the 2021 budget will obviously, awarding this contract for that amount will commit council to that amount of money. It will be therefore put into the Capital Works budget for 2021. Ultimately, that will go through the process, but we will have a formal contract in place by that stage, subject to council approving it tonight. So it will be moved, that additional money will be required to be allocated in the 2021 budget. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Madam Mayor, I didn't mean that in a detrimental way to the Harvest Award. I was just asking a question as to whether it could be a saving found in the Harvest Award. Of course, the whole of the city is important. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean to pinpoint that immediately.
Thank you, Councillor Goodichere. Any other questions? I have one for the Director. It seems like we're over budget 460,000, is that correct?
That's correct. That by allocating the full scope of works, it would see an additional amount of money being required over and above the allocated budget currently provided by council. So
does this mean the 460,000, that means we will have to cut back in other areas?
So the council will have to consider its budget as it normally does on an annual basis. This will be obviously part of the consideration of a commitment of council if council make that decision tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteside. Any other questions, councillors? All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? Yes, Councillor Heddage?
Was there anyone speaking against?
Not to my understanding.
No.
No.
Questions.
No, they were just questions. Thank you. All right, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Carried. Thank you. Next, we've got item number 12.15, the contract number 20/2791 Recyclables Processing Service. Could I ask Neil Whiteside if you could briefly introduce the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is for council to consider awarding contract number 20/2791 External Recycling Processing Service. The contract is for a medium term, commencing on the 1st of December 2019 and expiring on the 30th of June 2021, and will provide council recycling processing services at the recycling facility at Laverton North, while providing the council the opportunity to procure a longer term contract through the Metropolitan Waste and Resource Recovery Group's joint procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Do I have a mover for this report? Councillor Goodichere. Do I have a seconder? Councillor David. Councillor Goodichere, would you like to speak to this report?
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, the recyclables saga continues. We've been given a bit of a reprieve in a sense we're endorsing this contract, which I think we will do, but lots more work, of course, needs to be done by the state government, and hopefully by the time this council is finished and there's a new council, I'm hoping that maybe the new council may be looking at some, better options in the recyclables area. That's all I wish to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodichere. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this? No. Are there any other speakers for this report? Okay, I'll put it to... Would you?
quick comment, Madam Mayor. It's really important that we, as Director Neil Whiteside's been saying to us, that it's really important that we do have a contract like this in place for the 19-month period as a buffer while we sort out how we go forward with recyclables into the future. Many councils are taking on different approaches to the traditional approach that's been done through the Metro Waste Group, and I look forward to Council receiving over the next period of time a range of options to consider to deal with recyclables going forward. The arrangements we've had in the past aren't necessarily the arrangements we need in the future, and I'm pleased to see that the officers and the council is looking at innovative ways to bring into play the circular economy. So congratulations on getting this particular piece of work done. Congratulations on negotiating the deal. We do need a secure contract in place given the uncertainties of the industry, and we also need a really clear options development in the months and years ahead as we get into implementation of the circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch.
I know was anyone else
Okay.
asking you to speak.
All right, are there any other councillors that would like to speak to this report? I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Next we've got item 12.16. We do have a councillor that's got a conflict of interest.
I would like to declare the indirect conflict of interest for this item as my family have a business nearby. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. So the item is contract number 20/2736, Alfreda Street Plaza Civic Centre. Neil Whiteside, do you mind presenting this report?
Of course, thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is for Council to consider awarding contract 20/2736 Alfreda Street Civic Plaza. The Alfreda Street Civic Plaza will provide a multi-use civic space in the centre of St Albans that will allow for larger cultural events as well as encouraging day-to-day social interaction by providing a safe and inviting seating and meeting spaces. The proposed Alfreda Street Civic Plaza is located around the old bus interchange, which was relocated as part of the new St Albans train station. The tender valuation panel has rated TDL Contractors Proprietary Limited as the preferred tenderer, as it's considered they have the expertise and capability to complete the works under the contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors?
I have a question to the Director. When is the envisaged starting date for the works on Alfreda Street?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, obviously subject to the adoption tonight of this report, we anticipate the works commencing subject to discussions with the successful tenderer early in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or points of clarification? Do I have a mover for this report?
Moved as per business papers, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Allen, seconded. Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this report?
Madam Mayor, I've been sitting on the committee in regards to looking at the revitalisation of the Alfreda Street and Greater St Albans Business District, and I have to say this is a very long overdue revitalisation project. I think with the activation that we currently have, the community is now looking at the next phase and what is in store. We have doing the Errington redevelopment at the same time, and I think that finalising this will be a tremendous improvement for the retail, but also the cultural wayfinding for the whole of the St Albans. So I congratulate all the work done by the panel in seeking a tender and look forward to the revitalisation project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to this report? No. Do I have any other speakers that would like to speak to this report? Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the investment in St Albans. It's fabulous what's going on up there. There is an enormous amount of activity going on at present, and I think it is worth reflecting on just how much is going on. It is terrific. and St Albans will look terrific in a few years' time. The product of investing in a public realm and in facilities that improve public realm and local trading areas is vital. We've also got the big health and wellbeing hub to come down the road at Keilor Downs, and it will also make St Albans a wow of a place in the future. So I commend all the investment in St Albans that's going on at present. I look forward to a range of investment in various places around town in coming years to make them equally attractive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Any other speakers for this report? Councillor David.
Madam Mayor, just very short. I mean, earlier we were speaking about super happy sunshine and as such. What a wonderful things are happening in St Albans. Alfreda Street. Should have bought that in 1956, 58 for $120,000 a whole street. So, yeah. But honestly, it's a tremendous achievement, and well done. Our directors and officers, they put a lot of work to that, and it'll be the capital of West, like 100%. It'll be a beautiful place to live and work and play there. I'm really jealous of St Albans now. I really am, but it's a wonderful thing to see, and congratulations all around, yeah.
It sure is, Councillor David. Yeah. Do I have any other speakers? Right, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Our last report is 12.17, contract number 20/2730, 2019 to 2020, asphalt resurfacing works at various roads. Neil Whiteside, could I please ask for a brief report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report is for Council to consider awarding the contract as part of our asphalt resurfacing program. There are 102 roads that will be resurfacing under this program, subject to Council's adoption tonight. Tenders were assessed by the Tender Evaluation Panel against the evaluation criteria. It's considered Asphalt Tech, Vic, a proprietary limited, has the expertise and capacity to complete the works. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? No? Do I have a mover for this report? Councillor Farm, a seconder, Councillor Goodichere. Councillor Farm, would you like to speak to this report?
Just a tiny bit. I'm not sure directly related, but I get sometimes frustrated with some of the work that we are not the one who in charge of doing that road work, but our footpath getting dig up and patch up not in a very good way, and we get a lot of claims. So by doing this, we make sure that our road, our footpath is easier for people to walk around or ride around, but it's got to be fair. Other authority that touching on our road need to do a lot better job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farm. Councillor Goodichere?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, is there anyone else that would like to speak to this report? No, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Now we're up to item 13, notices of motion. We've got 3 notices of motion this evening. 13.1, Greening the West. Do I have are there any questions or points of clarification? No? Do I have a councillor to move this notice of motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move the motion as per business papers. Would Madam Mayor require me to read it out in full, or are people happy to read off their papers?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Hedditch. Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my great pleasure to put this motion forward. The Greening the West platform was released in 2013 and it was endorsed by Council at the time. Greening the West has generated around $30 million worth of green infrastructure projects. One of those projects, the 1 million tree project, was funded with $5 million from the federal government and won the Environmental Protection Award at the Premier Sustainability Awards in 2019. This fund application was managed by Lead West. Council's urban forest strategy seeks to increase the canopy from 6.2 to 30% over 30 years, requiring around 700,000 new tree plantings. Council has recently planted around 200,000 plants in parks from state and federal government funding. This will ensure most parks have at least 30% canopy cover. The focus is now to seek funding for more trees in streets to create cooler streets for walking, cycling, improving livability, especially in the vulnerable corridors in Brimbank. And Madam Mayor, I draw your attention to the briefing that we were given where we were shown the corridors where there is a heating effect. And in those corridors, the initial impetus of this notice of motion was to increase the plantings in those particular corridors. So Brimbank Council has been a strong advocate for greening the West since 2013. Council has planted many trees in local parks, and councils have been able to, this council in particular was one of the first councils to achieve changes to the planning schedules that requires tree planting in front yards of unit developments in backyards. So that's another first that we can be proud of with our council, is that we actually introduced that into our scheme, and now it becomes almost the most important thing is that people do plant the trees, and we consider that to be just as important as the construction of housing, that there's balance with the canopy in the residential area. Many councils' parks will now have at least 30% canopy cover in the coming years, creating shady parks across the municipality. Council is now looking to focus on streets and promote the planting of trees in private land. In order to have a strategic approach to this, a new municipal tree policy is being developed to replace the existing street tree policy. And councillors would have seen in the social media and also in our own emails that there is consultation now on across the city of Brimbank on the tree policy, which will give an opportunity to our community to give its input on what they believe a good canopy cover percentage is and where it's needed the most. So along with declaring a climate emergency, which this council has done, greening the West, I believe, is a tangible way where we can improve the cooling of our environment and decrease the heating impact. The temperatures are going to get hotter, not colder, so it is really important that we mitigate the increasing temperatures by something that may seem expensive now, but how expensive is it going to be later when the environment is going to be a lot hotter and hotter in the corridors where the people are the most vulnerable and may not be able to afford cooling systems. Trees offer that natural cooling by decreasing the temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees. So I think we have got a massive responsibility for our future generations to promote more tree plantings, and I believe that we should be writing for phase 2 of Greening the West because of the success of Greening the West phase 1 and the award-winning that it won that excellent award. I think that gives us a good platform to ask for a phase 2 to help mitigate the heat waves that are now becoming more and more prominent and that have the biggest impact on the vulnerable communities across Brimbank. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Hedditch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support all that Councillor Tarkos has said. I also wanted to say that this is a really key issue for us. We have a long way to go to get to 30% and a long time to go to get to 30%. 700,000 trees over a 25-year period is a lot of trees, a lot of money and a lot of effort. It needs to be shared around all of that. I think
the timeline personally is way too long. We need to be bringing cooling effects in much quicker if we can, and if there's an opportunity in the negotiations that go on to hasten some of this process, then please, let's do it. I was talking to some people at the consultation we had down at VU 2 Saturdays ago to do with building Brimbank, and the person sitting beside me had a business in the Albion industrial area, and his comment was, can we do something to improve the, I guess, the landscape and the tree cover and the look and feel of these industrial areas. They've got very creative businesses going on, but bringing people in to look at them and to attract them to invest themselves in that area is difficult because of the look and feel of some of these industrial areas, but most importantly, the heat and the impact of, I guess, asphalt and tin roofs and various other building and built form around the area with very little green. So for me, it's a case. We know we have a budget to put together. We know we have a series of priorities, but it seems to me that we have the vulnerable communities that Councillor Tarkos talks about. We have our work areas, our industrial areas where people are working and coming and toing and froing all the time, which are very hot. We have heat island effect in various suburbs that is already mapped. We have a lot of trees that have gone into parks and various other areas. We have a great amount of work to do to bring this canopy cover up. How many trees will we lose? How many trees do we need to plant to actually get to that level? It's huge, and they have to grow. So 2046, 30% canopy cover by then, that's a lot of trees with a lot of growth over a short period of time. We need to be really getting stuck into this and putting budget behind it. It's one of the more important things we're doing in terms of infrastructure, environmental infrastructure going forward. So I commend it to Council. Thank you to Councillor Tarkos and the officers for putting together such a thoughtful notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hedditch. Are there any other speakers that would like to speak for this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Tarkos for putting this motion before us tonight. Yes, we need trees and more trees at all times. Mind you, I'm not an arborist, but my community tells me all the time there's no need to have 10 and 15 or more meters high trees. It is not needed within the streets in the city. But there's many other beautiful trees, indigenous trees, that they don't grow as tall. And people love them. They need trees. But I know a lot of elderly people now with a huge eucalyptus trees there. They don't sleep in the front rooms. They go right behind the last room to sleep because they're scared of winds and things like that. So, yes, we need more trees. Definitely we do. And we need to green the city as much as possible. We've all said that there's more heat coming. Weather is changing rapidly, so we have to have trees. We need the trees. But if you ask the community, they don't prefer those very tall trees. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Truong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I congratulate Council Tackle to put the motion. I think we all believe we would like to live in the rings. So to live in the rings, we need more tree, and especially now is the climate change. It will affect the pollution and also in our life diary. So planting tree is really important. To do like that, we need the funding from not only from council, but how can we get more money from state government or the federal government to understand and to put in. Also, we need the president, if they encourage them, is planting tree in their own house. So it will be in the future, like council had it mentioned, 2046, it's very long term. Maybe we still not here to see how long, how big of the tree grow. So we need to be quicker to put in the TID project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. I hope we are here in 2046. Okay, any other speakers? Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, especially given that we recently had the briefing on the municipal tree policy, which been eagerly awaiting. One thing that was on everybody's mind after that briefing was increasing funding for trees planted in the area. Recently had the Living Melbourne piece come across, and interesting to note, it said metropolitan regions in the west had 4%. So it sounds like Brimbank is doing a bit better than that, and that we had projected 20% tree canopy cover by 2050. So if we can definitely increase it to 30% by 2046, it's a win in everybody's books. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Any other speakers for this report? Councillor Farm.
Just come up to my mind that I'm just wondering what our citizens doing with the tree that we give them in every citizenship ceremony. I might have to put in my fish store idea that, highlighting the successfully of our new citizen growing up with their tree that we're giving them. And looking forward to 5-year, 10-year time, how that tree grows. Not, end up in the bin. And that's why a lot of time I'm saying that with the tree that we give to our new citizen, it gotta be we gotta make sure that they can grow it even in pots or even in a small lot of land, because a lot of them don't own the house, and they can't actually grow it big enough. So just what I thought at this point in time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Farm. Any other speakers? Okay, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Tarkos, for putting that forward. Item 13.2, Community Grants Major Policy Review. Councillor Heddich, this is your notice of motion.
I'd like to move it as per the business papers.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a seconder for this notice of motion?
Speakers?
A seconder?
Need a seconder?
Councillor Borg, thank you. Councillor Heddich, would you like to speak to this notice of motion?
I would. This particular motion is put forward because we have a community grants major policy that I think has been around a while, and there has been a number of comments made about the policy, the way it's structured, and perhaps some improvements that could be made to it. Councillors have made these comments. There's also been comments about the overall funding levels we have for the community grants major policy, and also about how we might refine some of the administrative processes and practice associated with it. It's a fairly simple notice of motion. I think there's a lot of understanding in the room about what's intended in terms of policy review, funding level assessment, and review of business processes and practices. I commend it to the council group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this notice of motion?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor. I welcome this notice of motion, considering the comments that we were getting from the community within these last few weeks. And I think it's important that we make sure that we have, I know that the policies are in place, but just for further confirmation with the community, I think it's important that we review this policy, just for the peace of mind of the community. So I do welcome this notice of motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers for this report or notice of motion? Councillor Goodachie.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm a little disappointed actually at this notice of motion. A review was done of the community grants process In late 2017, it was presented to the Audit and Risk Committee. No problems were identified with that process whatsoever. And the only thing that I can identify right now is perhaps that the funding is not adequate. But the funding issue doesn't really come under this notice of motion. The funding issue will be referred to Council's budget, and if councillors wish to raise the amount of money that would be attributed to the community grants, well, that will be part of the budget process. So I'm sorry, I will not be supporting this because I don't think that there's been anything since late 2017 to now that would make me think that our processes have not been correctly followed. I don't think that there's anything in there that we could possibly do differently. We have put in new ways of dealing with the community. We've asked them to come in. We've helped them with their submissions. We've helped them in different languages. I mean, there's several things that we've done along the track. So I'm sorry, I can't support this because I can't see how a review of council policy at this stage could possibly make any difference apart from the money, which I think will be identified in our budget process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodchair. I might have to correct you there. Is it 2016 that the audit was done? Yes, thank you.
Yes, late 2016.
My apologies, it was late 2016. That's right, but I was still on that committee
right.
anyway, and I remember receiving that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or clarifications at this stage? Councillor Tarkos.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask clarification. Is an independent review required to consider the community grants increase in funding?
Through the chair, no. Short answer, no, that would be through the budget process if there was going to be an increase in funding. Through the chair, I remind that the council has all set the criteria for grant and the particular categories, and so that comes to council every year. So there's an opportunity there if you wanted to change the categories.
That's right. Okay, any other questions, clarifications, or would you like to ask a question, or would you like to speak, Councillor Farm?
I want to speak.
Okay.
So, related to community grant, as my portfolio at Vibrant, and I work a lot within, talking about community grant policy and event. So I understand, and I was just having quite a lot of discussion with our staff and our director about how the policy will structure, and also how much we want to give out that grant to all our community group, and how much we would love to support community group in terms of getting all that money. We're setting a budget there, and it's for community, not to take it back to us. But everything needs to be done under policy and a guideline. In the past, we have, say, I can't remember the number by heart, but under 100 group that applied. This year is over. How much more money that we need to put into catering for all that? That's what we need to discuss in the budget, not the policy. And also, with the way that people didn't get what they want, it might be because of the way they, doing their application. And with our staff intensively helping, and they're happy to sit down with the group after the application to guide them for the next year if they're missing something. And I think that should be enough. I don't really think at this point, after we just have the decision making about the community grant, we review the policy. Budget coming up, might be reviewing that, and every year I'm sure there will be someone that missed out because of certain reason. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question for Dan Hogan. Could you please just provide us more information on the process of community grants?
Yes, certainly, Madam Mayor. So fundamentally, we advertise the grants process on an annual basis. There's a number of different streams. Applications come in. I believe in this most recent round we had over 190 applications applying for $1.1 million worth of grants, of which I believe it was 160 were successful for the $600,000 available. If an incoming grant application requires to have an amendment of its category or stream, then the panel will do that, panel of staffers. And then there is a evaluation of those applications against a series of set criteria which are within the guidelines which are available on our website and distributed to all applicants. Further to that, prior to putting in an application, applicants are required to get in contact with our council staff and note that contact within their application so they have a full understanding of what it is that's required under the guidelines. Once the determination is made by the panel, then that is sent to me as the responsible director with a delegated authority to award or to sign off on the recommendations of the panel. And then that outcome of the grants funding program under the major policy then comes to council for noting and noting only. So it's not for determination of council, it is only to note the operational decision of officers which is auspiced by me. Following that, we then send notification to the applicants whether they've been successful or unsuccessful, and under the guidelines there is no further the decision is final. There is no further negotiation in regards to that.
Okay, one other question. When the audit was done in 2016, did the report find any concerns with the process?
The report did find that there were 10 items which it identified needed improvements. So there were 6 items under a medium risk category, 4 items under a low risk category and 0 under a high risk category. Further to that, following through the Risk and Audit Management Committee, all 10 recommendations were adopted and agreed by management and were then subsequently completed. So the 10 identified risks have since been rectified.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Allen.
You mentioned the last one being done a few years back. When was the next one scheduled to be done?
Through the chair, it's my belief that it's not currently scheduled to come towards. So typically what we do, both through Executive and the Audit and Risk Management Committee, is to identify what a 3-year rolling schedule of our audit and risk, our internal auditors will investigate. So there's 120 odd different services the council offers, so we try to get through those on that rolling schedule, and my understanding is that that's not currently on the 3-year horizon.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or clarifications? Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it...
Is this a question or a clarification?
Not
you're
question.
speaking to the report.
I think that the community brand, this year it's been improved a lot for the service, because I did attend some of the communication or the session, and I see it's a lot more different ethnic community attend and have the support from the staff. It from the beginning, and I on the day we congratulation and give the rent to the community. I see it a lot of new face. It received the funding, and I also believe it's some of the funding is like the same category. Before maybe give 10,000, but now maybe give 5,000. But other 2 community get in. That's why we increase the number, and the money is the same. And because like a few years ago, I did mention is some of the community, like Ching community, they didn't know how to apply. and this year they success. They're very happy about this. Once again, congratulations and thank you for the team.
Thank you for that good feedback, Councillor Trung. Any other? Yes, Councillor Tarkos.
Just a question on clarification on, in the past, applications were, I believe, outsourced. Is that the case? Or are they now treated all internally by council?
Through the chair.
The reason I'm asking that is in the past, a lot of groups mentioned that it was a lot of forms were required to be filled out that seemed to be quite onerous for a lot of community groups to fill out. And I'm just wondering whether this process is now in-house or is it externally contracted?
Could I ask the CEO to respond to this?
Through the chair, it's in-house. We actually use the big difference has been that we've gone online and we use a system called Smarty Grants. And I'm going to look over at the offices with Smarty Grants yet, the detail, but it's always been assessed in-house. We've never sent it out externally.
Okay.
Just check to see if there's anyone else who wishes to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other anyone else would like to speak for this report? No.
Okay, then Councillor Hedge gets right to reply.
Okay, Councillor.
Why not clarification?
Councillor Farm.
Based on my knowledge, I know that is done in-house, but there are community members that involved in the panel as well. If I'm not wrong. So there was. I thought there was the Brimbank award.
Is this a question, Councillor Farm?
The clarification based on what she asked. So
is this to Dan Hogan?
Yes.
Brimbank Community Fund. Through the chair, not in relation to the community grants program though. That's exclusively officers. However, you may be considering the Brimbank Community Fund, which is a separate item altogether.
Separate, different fund. Okay.
So, Councillor Hedge.
Councillor Hedge, you've got the right to respond.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for a great conversation. I think we need to have it. There's been, and I'll start at the start. The whole purpose of this is to say that we have a policy. Yes, it has been reviewed, but yes, there's been a lot of comments this year about the policy, its I guess design, its impact, its issues. We've had some major applications for significant amounts of money that have caused some, I guess, concern and requests for advice around why this and why not this. There's been a question about practice and about engaging more, particularly with those who are seeking major amounts of money in the process. So the administrative process has been questioned. The overall funding level, I'm prepared that we take that out and leave it to budget. I'm quite happy to do that as part of this notice of motion. But in terms of the policy, its design, its impact, and its, I guess, the benefits it delivers to this community in its current form has been discussed by councillors around the table quite a bit in the last few weeks since the information has come out. And the administrative processes and practices, I think, always need review and continuous improvement. But also, I think the comment that was made around $1.1 million worth of applications...
Point of order, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. I need to ask, are the officers aware of how many people have actually complained about our process this year?
Dan Hogan, do you mind responding to the question by Councillor Goodicci?
Complaints from members of the public, just to clarify. We've received complaints in regards to one application, as far as I'm aware at this point.
So,
yeah. Okay.
So,
could we wait until Councillor Heddich finishes his response and then
Please.
you can ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor,
Well, Madam Mayor, but it was imperative that I actually did clarify that because Councillor Heddich has said that there's been numerous people out there complaining.
yes, and that question could have waited until the end of that response.
My
Thank you.
comment just to clarify was that there had been complaints made around the councillor table over the last couple of weeks. Not complaints, but comments made around the council table over the last couple of weeks. And that implied, I think, that there were some concerns within community, and that's real. And I take Councillor Goodachay's point. She is questioning the level of complaints, but this is about the effectiveness of the community grants policy overall, evaluating it, reviewing it. We have a particular set of grants that are small in amounts and others which are large in amount. We have particular grants that have criteria against them that are being assessed in certain ways. We have particular grants that have, I guess, come in, $1.1 million worth, where we had...
Thank you, Councillor Heddich. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you.
This, I think, Councillor Goodachay's intervention has made an issue
Okay.
of something that wasn't needed to be made an issue
Thank you,
of.
Councillor Heddich.
No, I object to the
Councillors,
way this
are
has
there
been
any...
done. Not fair.
Are there any...
So this is, we'll need to put the motion to the vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put the motion to the vote. Now the motion, I'll have it read, that Council undertakes an independent review of its community grants major policy, its overall funding level and the administrative processes and practices associated with it.
The overall funding level out, as you said.
Unable to do that without moving an emotion.
All right.
And somebody
We're
else
not
will need to do
moving
that.
an amendment at the moment. Okay. Could we have those in favour, please raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against, raise your hand please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's lost.
So we now move to the next motion.
Thank you, Councillor Heddich. Item number 13.3, the notice of motion, it's continuation of the Maribyrnong Valley Connection project, and this is from Councillor Trung.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move the motion as printed in the paper.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor David. Councillor Trung, would you like to speak to your notice of motion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Perry Open Waste Management Partnership Program in $4 million 4-year program delivery through Department Environment and funding via the Victoria Government Sustainability Fund. The program aims to reduce the wastage of the biodiversity in public land and adopting a long-term catchment-based approach to waste control management. The Maribyrnong Valley Connection Project is one of 6 projects funded across Melbourne from the program. Project partners include Dale Park Victoria, Melbourne Water, Port Phillip, and Waterfront Catchment Management Authority, Hum City Council, Moonlee Valley City Council, and Maribyrnong City Council. Brimbank City Council is the lead project partner and hosts a coordinating officer. The program acknowledges tax wastage across the land ownership boundary and effective control require a recent approach. The project is currently in its 4th year. We Council received $621,000 in funding. Further, the project has attracted 8,000 volunteer hours and over 500 landholders have been engaged. The Maribyrnong Valley Connection Project had delivered impressive results over the 4 years, including an advantage of 50% reduction in high tidal risk across 24 sites along Maribyrnong River, side of Brimbank, Aubyn Point National Park, Sydenham Park, and Brimbank Park. In support of this note of motion, Council have received letter of support from Continuation, of the program for Mulli Valley and Maribyrnong City Council, Park Victoria, Port Phillip, and Western Port Catchment Management Authority, and form the fan of Organ Point. Council is also expecting to receive further letters from Home City Council, Melbourne Water, and the fan of Maribyrnong Valley and Holden Flora Research. At this stage, it is uncertain that the program will continue beyond June 2020. Despite its clear success in achievement on ground, ecological benefit and whole of catchment partnership. To deliver long-term benefit, the program requires continued funding and whole of the catchment management approach. It is important that this project continue to deliver environmental benefits, and I call on the state government to continue its commitment to the environment and to work in a partnership with us and all involved in this Maribyrnong Valley Connection project. It therefore commend this not of motion to my fellow councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Truong. Councillor David, would you like to speak to this notice of motion? Are there any speakers to this notice of motion?
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, I rise in support of Councillor Truong's notice of motion to write a letter of support to the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, in advocating for the continued funding of the Maribyrnong Valley Connect program. Last week at the Innovation Portfolio, the Environment Department did present an overview of this very important project. And this innovative catchment-based approach brings state and local government agencies together, along with the community, to help protect and improve biodiversity values on both private land and Crown land. It was a very, very important and very innovative presentation. It's continuously progressing, and the need for adaptation is paramount for future generations. It's already produced a range of different strategies and actions to ensure the delivery of a coordinated and successful program across different land tenure. So in a period of rapid climate change and species loss, the need for this adaptation is absolutely essential and critical. So we do look to the state government to support council in initiatives that aim for the long-term protection and improvement of our natural values and community resilience. And I certainly thank Councillor Truong for bringing this important matter to us at council. I also thank the Environment Department for their work in this area, very much valued. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodchair. Any other councillors that would like to speak to this notice of motion? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, item number 14, notices of motion. Notices of motion. Rescission, yes. There are no rescission motions this evening. Item 15, urgent business. CEO, is there any urgent business? No, thank you. Item 16, confidential business. There is no confidential business this evening. Okay, meeting closed. Thank you all for attending and for your interest in tonight's meeting. I declare this meeting closed at 9:57 p.m. Thank you.